Hey racers, and welcome back to another live stream. Got a new addition to the back wall, and everything's backwards because Facebook's done an update to their app, and it's not letting me flip the screen for whatever reason. So everything's backwards at the moment, which looks a bit funny, but not sure if it will stay there or not. But I guess we'll find out over the coming days and coming weeks. Um, Today's topic is, hey Luke. Today's topic is how to build strength for motocross or for enduro, and specifically how to do that without getting big and bulky. Okay, and looking like you belong on the front cover of Men's Health magazine. So, uh, before I get into that stuff though, to go back a step, strength should be the main part of your training program. It doesn't matter whether you're doing motocross events like 20-minute motos, 10-minute motos, you're doing 3-hour enduros, 4-hour enduros, 12-hour enduros. You're racing the Dakar, okay, you're doing Fink, you're doing Hadar, you do extreme enduro. All of those disciplines of riding have to have a high level base of strength. And the best way to build that strength is through training during the week, okay, off the bike stuff. So the reason that you need to build a high level of base strength is because riders and racers are mostly strength athletes. Okay, a lot of people think that they're more endurance athletes, but they're actually more strength athletes. And the reason they're more strength athletes is because riders have a heavy bike to throw around, okay, with a lot of power. If you're riding anything from a 250F, even a 252 stroke or a 300, they're about the 100 kilo mark. So you're moving or wrestling around 100 kilos plus if you're doing a 10-minute moto, a half an hour moto, a 4-hour enduro, an extreme enduro. It doesn't matter. You've got a lot of weight to be able to move around. So you need to have adequate strength. And strength is one of those things, is the stronger you get, the lighter the bike starts to feel. So there's no I guess, pinnacle of strength for riders and racers. For the amount of training that riders and racers do and the amount of time that they commit to it, there's always time there and space for them to be able to make progress and to be able to get better with their strength work. So the stronger you can be overall, the lighter your 100 kilo bike will feel. And the lighter we can get your bike to feel in comparison to your overall strength, the less energy you use and the less you fatigue. And so the less energy you use and the less you fatigue, hey Matt, the longer you can keep riding for at a high intensity. Okay. If you don't have a high level of strength and you have a low level of strength, what happens is you might be great at, say, running 5Ks or using the rowing machine or going for a swim, and you might not have a problem with cardio. But then when you go and ride, all of a sudden it's a different story. And the reason that happens is because if your level of strength is fairly low, that 100 kilo bike feels really, really heavy. And when it feels really, really heavy, you fatigue really quickly and you use a lot of energy in a very short period of time. So that's why strength building overall is really important, because that makes the bike feel lighter. That means you use less energy. And if you're using less energy, that means you have more energy left for your riding and for your racing. And that comes through strength training. So the exercises that you want to be using to build strength for riding and for racing, for extreme enduro, pony expresses, motocross events, Hadar, Fink, Dakar, Erzberg, Romaniacs, whatever it is that the races that you follow or that you get to, you want to be doing things like back squats, deadlifts, overhead presses, bent over rows, at least to get started with and be comfortable with all of those movements. Those movements are the best for building strength because we can add weight to the bar. So yes, you could lift some sandbags. Yes, you could go and muck around with some bricks in the backyard. Yes, you might have a physical job, but you can't alter those loads, okay? And when you can't alter a load, a variable, it makes it hard to make progress with that thing. So if you go out and lift 20 kilos all the time, you're only going to be as strong as you need to be to lift 20 kilos. You're not going to get anything past that by doing more 20 kilo reps. You need more weight. And so that's why, hey Leo, that's why strength training is great, because you can add micro increments of weight to your body and get it stronger in a controlled way. And it also allows you to track progress as well. So you can say, okay, well, if you're doing squats with 50 kilos this week and then in a few months' time you can do squats with 70 kilos, you know you've gotten a lot stronger, and you know that the bike is going to feel lighter and be easier to manage. So it's easier to track. So that's why you want to get strong. If that all makes sense, guys, just give me a thumbs up on the video. Facebook doesn't always let me know who's on the video. Common mistakes that I see. So, like, in theory, this sounds pretty simple, right? And I find the only thing that holds riders back from implementing things that I talk about is other common beliefs or mindsets that either come from fitness, the fitness industry, or that come from the racing industry, or that come from both industries. And so people have these beliefs in their mind about what they should be doing for training and what their training should look like that hold them back from improving things, because they think that that's what needs to be done, or that's what they've been told, but they don't actually have any reference. Hey, Dale, they don't have any reference. Hey, Darren, they don't have any reference for why they have that particular belief. It's just what they've always been told. And when you get told something enough, it's like when you're a kid. You tell your kid something enough, okay, eventually they're going to listen. And it's the same for adults as well. Sometimes we get told something so many times that we just take the person's word for it. We don't actually do any research or have a look if it's valid or not. So the common mistakes there's actually quite a few. There's probably more, but I've come up with 6 that I could find. So common mistakes that I see with people or riders specifically trying to build strength. First thing is they do the wrong weight training movements. Hey, Reese. Hey, Patrick. So there's 2 types of ways you can go with your weight training. You can go down the bodybuilding route, which is a primary goal is to put on size. Okay, that's one type of weight training. The other type of weight training is strength training. So the difference between those two is one is focused on building mass and making muscles bigger. The other one's making muscles more efficient and making them stronger. I find a lot of riders, again, like different beliefs, a lot of riders think that they go hand in hand. They think that getting bigger means getting stronger, and getting stronger means getting bigger. And they can be separate if you want them to be. So a perfect example of this is if you look at a bodybuilder. Bodybuilders aren't always the strongest people. Okay, they might look strong, but in comparison to, say, like an Olympic lifting athlete or a powerlifting athlete, they're not as strong, even though they might look a lot stronger. And the reason is because of the goals that they have with their training. So the way bodybuilding works is you're doing weight training and you're using isolation exercises. So you're isolating specific muscle groups. So it could be like you're doing leg day, arm day, chest day, core day, calves day, back day, things like that. And the whole goal is to do exercises for those specific areas and break down muscle fibers. So when you break down muscle fibers, what happens is that they're like micro tears, okay, in muscle fibers, which make up your muscles. And these micro tears then make the muscle weaker in the short term, okay, and less capable, because that's why you get really sore, especially after you've done bodybuilding training. But then your body repairs and recovers, and those muscle fibers come back a little bit bigger. And so that's how the muscle grows. That's the whole process of bodybuilding. Tearing muscle fibers, repair. Tearing muscle fibers, repair. Tear, repair. And they get bigger and bigger and bigger. But that doesn't necessarily mean strength will improve with that, but strength is not the main overall goal. If your goal is to improve overall strength, then you don't necessarily want the muscle fibers to be bigger. Your main goal is to make those muscle fibers more efficient. So when I use an example of efficiency, it's like having a 250F, right? And you've got a stock standard 250F. And we want to make that 250F go faster. There's a couple of things you can do. Number one, get a bigger motor for it. Put a 270 kit in it, 300 kit, whatever kit you can buy for it. Put a 450 motor in there and rip the 250 motor. You can do that. Or you can make that 250 motor more efficient. You could get an exhaust, get a free-flowing header pipe, better flowing muffler. You could get port and polish work done. You could get cams put in there. You could use racing fuel instead of standard fuel. You could get performance spark plugs instead of standard spark plugs. Still a 250. It's just going a lot harder and working a lot harder. It's capable of doing a lot more. And that's the same with when we're building strength. With those muscle fibers, we're not trying to get more muscle fibers. We're not trying to make them a heap bigger. what our goal is we want to make them stronger and more efficient at their job. And that's like putting your bike on the dyno and getting it tuned. That's what we're doing with your muscle. We want to finally tune them to be able to lift, hey Tony, to lift a lot more than what they're lifting at the moment, and move a lot more weight. So that's a common mistake, is riders think that getting big and getting strong go together when they can actually be separate. So if you're interested to see like what I'm talking about, you can have a look at, it's called Olympic weightlifting, which is a type of weightlifting. And you can look at, I think it's the 48 kilo class for women. You'll see girls that are 48 kilos that are tiny lifting 100 kilos or double their body weight over their head. Most guys can't even do that. Okay, a lot of you guys watching this video probably can't even do that. And these are girls that are 48 kilos lifting over twice their body weight over their head. And the reason that they can do that is because they train for strength. Okay, they're not training for size. Likewise, you can look up bodybuilders, women bodybuilders, and it's a completely different story. They look completely different to what the 48 kilo Olympic lifter looks like. Just they train in two different ways. If that makes sense, guys, just give me a thumbs up so I know we're on the same page. The other common mistake I see is riders will start strength training and they'll go into a calorie surplus, and oftentimes unintentionally. And so they start gaining weight. And so what they think is that they either think that they're someone who bulks up easily or that gains weight easily from doing strength training. And that may be the case. Genetically, we're all programmed differently. We can all if you want to get bigger, you can get bigger. You want to get stronger, you can get stronger. That doesn't have anything to do with your genetics. Some of us just have more of a head start in one direction or the other. So often what I find happens is unintentionally, riders will go into a calorie surplus when they're weight training. And the reason this happens is when you start weight training, your body's working overtime because it's lifting these weights that it hasn't lifted before. It's having to improve itself. It's having to improve its efficiency, improve its strength. When it's improving its efficiency, improving its strength, it takes a lot of energy from your body. And so what happens is your body's burning a lot more calories and your metabolism starts to speed up. So now your metabolism's cranking up and we're burning a lot more energy, a lot more fuel. It's like upgrading your bike you go from a 250 to a 450. The 450 uses a lot more fuel, but it's also capable of a lot more. It's got a lot more power, a lot more torque. And that's the same with your body when you go from squatting 50 kilos to squatting 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 kilos. The same thing happens. Your body needs more fuel to be able to operate at that higher level. And so what happens is sometimes riders they don't want to gain weight. They want to stay at the same weight or they want to lose weight. And so what starts to happen is they do weight training, which speeds up their metabolism. Their metabolism speeds up. So subconsciously, unintentionally, they start eating more and consuming more calories, okay, whether they know it or not. And so it doesn't matter if you're eating healthy or you're eating shit food. If you're increasing your calorie intake, even though you're burning more calories, what will happen is you'll go into what's called a calorie surplus. So to maintain our body weight, so let's say you weigh 100 kilos, make it easy. If you want to stay at 100 kilos, there's a certain amount of calories that you need to consume to stay at 100 kilos, okay, just to stay at that body weight. If you want to increase your body weight to 105 kilos, you actually have to consume more calories than what your body's burning or using just to maintain itself every day. So in other words, you have to give your body extra fuel, more than what it normally needs. And what will happen then is your body will add weight to itself. Okay, we'll add kilos, either through body fat or muscle mass or through both. So what happens is when riders start weight training is their metabolism speeds up and unintentionally they're eating more food or they're consuming more calories. Might be good food, but they're taking in more calories. And so what happens is even though they're burning off more calories and doing more exercise, they're putting in more as well. And so instead of staying at the same weight, okay, or instead of losing weight, if that's their goal, hey, Jason, then they start to gain weight. And so the problem here is not the weight training. The weight training is not causing them to gain weight. It's the calorie surplus, okay? And so what decides whether you gain fat or you gain muscle is training. So overall, a calorie surplus is to get that number on the scale moving up, you have to be consuming more calories than what your body is burning. Whether you put on muscle mass or you put on fat is decided by the type of training that you do, okay? If your goal is to stay at the same weight and you want to get stronger and not get any heavier, what you need to be doing is tracking your calories and making sure that you're actually keeping the same amount of calories going in as what you're burning. Okay, so if you have not been weight training and you start weight training, a great way to start, if this is you, is to make sure that you're eating the same amount of calories that you were eating before, and then add in your weight training on top of that. Okay, and what that will do is you won't be in a calorie surplus then, you could be in maintenance or maybe even a little bit of a deficit. And that way what will happen is when you go and train, you get a lot stronger and you can get the strength benefits from lifting weights, but you're not going to be adding a whole heap of weight. So at the end of the day, if you're gaining weight for whatever reason, it's because more calories are going in than what you're burning. Okay, it doesn't matter the type of food. The type of food doesn't play a role in how basic physics work with the body. If you're taking in more than what you're burning off, you're going to gain weight, muscle or fat. The other thing, third thing, this will make sense, guys. Give me a thumbs up. Make sure we're on the same page. I know there's a few extra guys that have just jumped on. Third thing I find, common mistake is weights aren't heavy enough. So riders are scared to lift heavy weights. And mostly, number one, because again, it's that belief system. It's they think they're going to get big and bulky if they lift heavy. If that was actually the case, then all motocross and enduro riders would be looking like the Hulk, because you've got a 100 kilo plus bike, right? So if you're out riding every weekend lifting this 100 kilo plus bike, you would think that you would have to be massive, but riders aren't massive. And the reason they're not massive, even though they're lifting large amounts of weight or wrestling large amounts of weight, is because the type of weight training, okay, that riding involves. So lifting heavy in the gym is going to make things easier for you on the bike. It's going to make that 100 kilo bike feel easier. Riders don't lift heavy enough for two reasons. Is number one, they think they're going to get big and bulky overnight. It's not going to happen. If you're getting big and bulky overnight, like if you've done a few weight sessions and you think that you've gained a whole heap of weight, number one, it's probably body fat, and number two, you're definitely eating more calories than what you've burnt off. The other thing is people get also scared of getting hurt with lifting heavy weights, and that's one I'll get to in a minute. Number four is sometimes riders eat in a calorie deficit, so the opposite. So these are not for the people that gain mass easily. These are for the people that it takes a lot of effort for them to gain mass. And so what happens is I find people in this category, riders in this category will start weight training and doing some exercise, and they're trying to gain weight and they end up going backwards. And so what happens is they're eating this amount of food, and to stay at their current body weight, let's say you're 70 kilos, right? You're eating this amount of food to stay at 70 kilos of body weight, doing this amount of activity. And so what happens is as riders go and train, they're burning more calories. So if they want to stay at the same weight, because they're burning more calories with their training now, they actually have to eat more calories to keep up with their training, just to stay at the same body weight. They have to eat more food just to stay at the same body weight. So if they want to gain body weight, they have to eat exponentially more than what they're burning at training to be able to actually gain weight. And so for those people, eating is almost a full-time job. You have to have a really good layout and a good strategy for getting in extra calories during the day. And that doesn't always mean food. It might be doing that through shakes, an easier way, so you don't have to have bloody 6 meals a day to try and put on some weight, or at least stay at the same body weight. So what I find is sometimes people go into a calorie deficit. They start training and they get into a deficit, and that's why they start to lose weight. And this also affects their strength work as well. They're not able to get as strong as quick because their body doesn't have extra nutrients and extra fuel to be able to recover from the training that they're doing. So for those people, they need to go the opposite way to the surplus people before. They need to crank up their food. So high calorie foods, off the top of my head, usually nuts are quite high in fats, olive oil, very high in calories. Other things that are high that you can use that's higher in calories, you can use like whole milk with protein. So that's what I've done for a few of our guys that have had trouble gaining weight, the opposite way, is given them protein shakes to have during the day with 300, 400, 500, 600 mils of milk, whole milk. And that's just a really good way to get a few hundred calories in really easily. Okay, especially like I've had like one of the riders I worked with was in construction, was a tradesman. And so you couldn't always stop he's quite active during the day. We've added in this training on top of that, and his metabolism's fast as it is. So you can imagine how hard that is for him to try and gain weight. So what we did is we added in shakes throughout the day, and that's what was able to get him the extra calories so he could gain weight, and still do his work at the same time. Obviously, if you're in an office, it's a little bit easier to get food in. Next thing is consistency with movements and training. So, like if you're trying to gain strength and you change your exercises every session and you just make it up as you go, you don't have a program to follow, that's going to affect your results with strength work. Strength work is not just going in and lifting heavy weights. Strength work is a progression and a system. Okay, it's a path. It's an art. It's an art as well as a science. Gaining strength. So if you're going in one day and today you decide to do deadlifts and then you do strongman next week and then you do calisthenics the next week, you're going to find it hard to gain really, really good strength in a short period of time because there's no consistency there with what you're doing. Next one is poor technique. So that builds on what I was saying before. Hey, Leo. That builds on what I was saying before is if you've got poor technique with your lifting, that's a common reason that riders don't get stronger because they've got previous injuries, they've got current injuries. And what that comes down to is you don't know how to perform the movements properly. I've spent the last 11 years nailing these particular types of movements, deadlifts, squats, bench over rows, overhead press, and I'm still improving. And so what happens is riders come in and train and watch a couple of YouTube videos or go and see what the other guys are doing at the gym, pick up the bar off the floor and do a deadlift and automatically assume that it's actually not that hard. The movements aren't that hard. It's just there's a lot of little things to improve to make sure you do the movement well. Otherwise, what will happen is you might do overhead presses and your back goes because you don't know how to core brace, or your knees get sore when you squat because you're not sure how to create torque with your legs. Or maybe you're tight in specific areas. Could be maybe you wear steel cap boots around at work and your ankles are stiff as shit. Or maybe you sit in an office and your shoulders are rounded forward, and that's what we've got to work on, posture and movement. So the movements are never the problem. Okay, deadlifts are not dangerous, back squats aren't dangerous, overhead presses aren't dangerous. None of those are dangerous. But if you have an issue doing those movements, it's because your body's not set up to do them, either through flexibility and mobility, either you're not doing the movement correctly, or you've got poor posture from whatever reason, work, or old injuries as well, or all of the above. Often what I find happens with the riders I work with is they'll have mobility issues or old injuries that they have, and they carry that into their training. So they can't perform the movements They don't perform the movements properly because their body's not moving well, and their body's not moving well, so they don't perform the movements properly. So we've got to work. That's where I prescribe like specific exercises or stretches for them to help them improve. And that's it, guys. That's all I've got. I've got through my list. If you enjoyed it, video, if it was helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Is there any questions though I can answer for you guys that I can help with anything that I've gone through so far? Hey, Carl. Any questions with strength work? Could be just any overall questions that you've got, or if it's specific to what we've spoken about today, I'll answer them for you now. What do we got? Anything at all, guys? We're a bit quiet today. So anything to do with what I've just gone through, anything to do with weight training, specific movements, calorie surplus, calorie deficit, heavy weights, consistency with movement, technique, anything like that at all? What have we got? Any questions? Oh, good, Carl. Awesome. Good stuff. Thanks for watching. Anyone else? Any questions at all? Darren, pretty much know that from before. Awesome, Darren. Good to hear from you. All right, that looks like it's it. Maybe no questions then. Cool. Well, hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video. As always, if anyone needs any help or you'd like some help, some coaching with your training, your movements, and building strength for your particular type of riding and racing, feel free to send me a private message. But otherwise, hope you guys are enjoying the videos. Trying to make the back wall a little bit brighter than what it's been, add a little bit of color. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. Anyway, I'll chat to you guys soon. See ya.